Bradford, thank you for joining me on the Hellbound Podcast.
Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
I wanted to chat to you for some time now because it was it the first Hellbound Podcast festival, or was it the Isolation Film Festival you submitted to previously?
Isolation.
Yeah, and I wanted to chat to you because you've got a unique brand of humour, which I totally appreciate.
But I appreciate you getting it.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah, the UK audience especially will definitely appreciate it. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're based, and we'll kind of get into chatting about your style and how long things take. So yeah, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am based in Arizona, and in the U.S. right now. Was California for most of it. So the last 5 years I've been in Arizona. Just can't handle the prices in California anymore.
Yeah, I can imagine. And when did you kind of first start delving into animation, or this kind of animation?
It really happened for me when I went to college. I watched, growing up, you saw, behind the scenes with Walt Disney, and then you get behind the scenes with the Looney Tunes. They had those, making of, segments on television all the time, so you got to see, how they did Bugs Bunny and frame by frame. And so I liked animation, but I didn't want to do all that, so I kind of avoided animation like the plague for most of my childhood. But then when I got to college, I kind of like snuck into the animation department at San Francisco State University, and I guess at that point I was mature enough to really appreciate and enjoy it, and I could draw really well, so I kind of took to it then. But before that, oh, forget it. But I can sculpt better than I can draw, so I tend to lean toward clay more, but
Yeah.
I can on occasion do 2D.
Oh, that's cool. Just a little side note: have you got a fan on in your room?
The AC's running.
Okay,
It's
no,
like
it's
right-
it's okay.
right.
It just seems to be like an intermittent thing, but it's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the one thing that the one big takeaway for me on Entropic, we'll talk about it in a bigger thing, was the one thing I really loved was the use of close-ups and what you would. This is going to sound very specific, but what you were doing with liquids in your animation.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine how difficult that must be for the type of animation, the stop animation you're doing. Because there's sequences with, is it? I don't want to spoil it, but like the birth towards the end.
Oh, right.
Are a marvel,
Yeah.
and everything around the.
You're talking about the amniotic fluid?
Yeah. No, I love all of that. But when did you realize
I like
how
to
long?
experiment.
Yeah, how long did you?
Sorry?
Sorry, when did you realize how long that kind of thing would take? Because obviously, if you do claymation and you do movement of solid objects, how do you kind of figure out how much time you're going to spend on these things?
I storyboard it out, and then I kind of I use a timer and I picture it in my head, and then I stop the timer,
Yeah.
and that kind of gives me a rough idea. Sometimes I'll go less frames and sometimes more frames, but generally it helps me visualize the movement in my head with a stopwatch,
Yeah.
and then I just lay that into my animatic for timing wise and try and get a good pacing.
And when did you realize at university? What was the point or was it before that, when you realized how long this kind of animation takes to produce something? Because obviously we know, because it's got everyone. A lot of people know they're huge film fans and that are fans of, say, Ray Harryhausen. They realize through behind the scenes how long these things take. So when did you fully realize how long it would take to make something?
When did I fully realize? Fairly quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in stop motion animation, you know, you're going to be spending a lot of time on certain things by yourself.
Yeah.
Even with the advancements in technology, because you know, Ray didn't have the technology we have today. You know, he was just, it's amazing. I mean, he only maybe did a few frames a day, you know, because he was trying to be perfect. Now, you know, if he had the ability of like you know, dragon frames onion skin, I mean, it would just, he would probably crank out far more back then than people would realize if he had the ability. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's stop motion for me. Once you get the motions right, and I get you know, I'll record myself doing the motions and the movement, or I'll find some video or a film that has a similar speed and effect, then I can implement that and kind of gauge it, you know, based off of, you know, the timing.
Well, that's fascinating, because I've done very few kind of composite shots for other things, and I spent like hours doing a 10-second shot, but that was just cutting. There was rain, and there was this rock had to be gold, and everything else had to be black and white. But the raindrops couldn't be gold, so when they crossed the frame, yeah, I can only imagine how long these things take. And what I really admired about Entropic was, yeah, your use of liquids. I thought that was. It might seem like maybe not simple to you, but I think from having a certain amount of awareness of what it takes to make something like that you've produced. Is it more complicated using liquids? And it's a very specific question.
Not anymore. Now that I figured out how to do it. It was always something that always scratched my head when I was watching. Like, I'll watch Aardman, you know, and they were using wax and for like liquid drops going down Grommet and Wallace. And I was like, there's got to be another form, especially if you want to do like pouring liquids, because, you know, I've seen other, you know, try to use cellophane and other types that give you that sheen, but I was like, there's got to be a way. And so I discovered during the pandemic that slime, if you get the slime in the right consistency, it'll hold shape long enough for the shot, and then it'll kind of start to move.
Yeah.
And so if you just keep adding, you know, slime on top of slime, give it a second to kind of mesh, it starts to look like bubbling and flowing liquid. And so that's what I discovered. And so then I don't want to spoil the shot you're talking about, but, you know, take a balloon, cover it with liquid latex and texture it, and then shove slime into it, you know, so that when it bursts, you know, you get that beautiful liquidy flow. You know, just shot, you know, click, and just.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people's takeaway will be. Well, people that know me well and big film fans, they'll see that and go, they'll marvel how you did that, because it looks real in many ways. Do you know what I mean? Because you get that looks really very good. I'm like, I just kept trying to think on how you achieve that, but using slime, it seems like a simple step, but brilliantly done. Can you tell the audience that don't know about or may not have seen that poster art, what your film's about and where the inspiration came from?
The film's about a guy who's camping in the Grand Canyon, who comes across an extraterrestrial, which has it has bad results later on. It's probably the nicest way I could put it without spoiling it too much. The inspiration was a combination of things. I recently had some surgery prior to filming that, and then I was scrolling through Instagram while I was in the waiting room, and another fellow film festival curator, had posted a comic about a guy giving birth, and I'm like, you know what? Well, that's kind of intense. And I was like, and I don't think I've ever seen that on film. Like, I don't think anyone has even attempted to show graphically what that might look like. And so then I was kind of, so I just kicked it around. I hadn't planned on doing it just yet, or even if I was going to do it. And then I was watching a bunch of old 80s movies. So I was watching like The Last Starfighter, and I was watching Alien, and I was watching a bunch of different, science fiction films, and always sometimes when there was an effect in there, I was like, that can be done now. I could do that myself. So like, I don't know. There's a few effects in this short that are direct, almost,
homages kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Homages from some of those films where you're like, oh, yeah, that's it. And only if you saw those films, or you're a big fan, would you like, oh, I know that film.
Yeah,
I know what that's from. Or
yeah,
where you got
there's some classic moments like it's not a spoiler, but the scientist guy in the high, the hazard outfit, trying to get out the birthing room. And I love that. I love the shot you chose outside the room and then going back, and yeah, it's kind of a classic horror staple, really. But yeah, I think I've only seen it possibly once before. It wasn't. I don't think it was a birth, but there was a Shudder film with Clancy Brown. It was a mini series, something Chronicles. I can't quite remember the name, but it was on Shudder. And there's a sequence with a guy whose penis explodes. It's visually, because it wasn't an animation or anything, but it's like horrific. But I'm not going to spoil this. When you watch your film, it's like this has got to be from Bradford's mind. This is a personal film in many ways. This has got to be his sense of humor, definitely. Would that be about right?
Yeah, that would be about right. Yeah.
But no, I love that. I absolutely loved it. I honestly, I really enjoyed it. I think your last animation to Isolation Film Festival was superb as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. When did your kind of interest in horror start? Where did that come from?
That came from childhood. I've always been fascinated. I'm from the '80s. I mean, I'm an '80s child, so I was alive and well during the time where the VHS, mom and pop shops were everywhere. And I looked forward to going to them with my parents, and I always gravitated toward the horror section just because they had such the best posters, the most fascinating posters that I could just ever walk in, and I was like, it was just the posters themselves that sold me into that world. And then my parents would pick up a few films now and then, and I would sneak out and kind of hide and watch them, and it was just like, I want to watch these movies, I want to watch these monster movies. And then there was, of course, the Saturday creature features, in the afternoons they would play monster movies all the time. And so it was just a natural progression for me to just become really much a horror fan, especially high school, and then college. College is when my whole film, world exploded, because I discovered there was far more films. Like when you're young and you think that you've seen all the movies in this little blockbuster video, and you don't realize that they're only scratching the surface. There's so many films that have been made, so many films, and that you've never seen them all. Like you can't even claim to see every horror film ever made. And there's just, because like every year, like Arrow and Diabolic and Vinegar Syndrome, unveil new films that you've never heard of. And so you're constantly taking in all this horror and appreciation for films, foreign films. It's just been it was an eye opener, I should say.
And that's
it's just
that's the beauty of the VHS era it's like when like you're swapping stickers at school, or there's an exchange of something where, because you got physical products or something with that artwork on. That's how I found out about Bruce Lee. That's how I found out about horror, 80s horror, because other people would own these things, and then they'd start kind of introducing me to them, like John Woo's Hard Boiled. I'd never seen it, and someone said, "Oh, just borrow this." I'm like, "Okay, what's this?" I don't know who John Woo is. This was 20 odd years ago. I watched it and I was like blown away, because it's a foreign language film. It's not as available as they are now, or as prevalent. And I was just kind of, my mind, like yourself, I was exposed to this massive like outreach of movies. Like I started to love classic movies years and years ago when I was much younger, because other people introduced me to them. And then 80s horror, I thank my brother for, because I used to have severe nightmares watching Child's Play or Freddy Krueger. But now, honestly, I've had the worst nightmares because of Freddy Krueger, feeding my own stomach in a high chair, that kind of thing. So, yeah, 80s horror for me is where it's at. I love everything about it. I love the sensibilities, the characters. Like, I think Fright Night's my favourite out of any horror film. I know I love The Thing and Alien and all of that. And I think Alien's a little bit earlier, isn't it? But yeah, Fright Night, because it's so ridiculous as well, and it's got some beautifully written pieces of music in that film, especially in the nightclub. But yeah, have you got any favourites from that kind of era?
From that era, oh yeah, The Howling, Friday the 13th, The Shining. There's just a lot of really well done films back then, and I'm still discovering new ones, all the time.
Yeah.
So my physical media collection is ever growing.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm a big proponent of physical media still, because even, what was it the other day? There was something removed off Disney Plus, or if your internet goes down, or you got unreliable internet, what are you supposed to do?
The cloud's not going to last forever.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first thing.
I think
that's
Joe
the
John
first thing that
said
would get attacked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be the first thing attacked, right? If anything goes down, the internet. So I want my physical media.
Yeah.
I got I use a stack of physical media either side of this window in front of me. The blind's closed, but it helps displace some of the audio. So actually, it's got a secondary purpose. But yeah, I'm a big fan of that, and yeah, and all that 80s stuff, most of it you just can't find on these streaming services. Like I did discover something the other day called Demons. Have you ever seen that?
I have.
I absolutely love it.
There's two different versions. There's the old one, and then there's the remake.
Let me find. I think it's the 80s one that I loved.
I think the 80 ones was really good.
Yeah, this is the best thing. When you discover, and you're a horror fan of the 80s, when you discover something new to you from the 80s, I think it's the best, because it's so kind of defined. There's no more 80s films, so
no, it's true. So you get that sound quality, the lighting, like it's special, and to discover it, you're like, why the hell haven't I ever seen this before?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's pretty fun.
There was one. Let me find the name of it. Someone recommended. I really didn't like it. It was about these machines that come to life. They come to life and they start terrorizing people in this petrol station or this gas station. Oh, what the hell was it called? It's got like a hobgoblin on the front of this truck. Maximum Overdrive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
not one of my favorite. I don't own that one, so it's not a fan. Not a favorite.
No, I'm not a fan at all. Someone recommended it, they loved it, but I'm like, yeah, I can kind of live without that one.
everybody's got different tastes, you know.
Yeah.
I get recommendations all the time, and you know I can agree or I disagree, you know, and they may love it, but wasn't a favorite of mine. But I mean, we at least took a look at it. You know, we took their recommendation and watched it. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what we did on. That's what we did on a previous episode of the podcast. I think it was Michael's, the other host's wife, that recommended it, and we record this other podcast called Slayer Talk about Buffy, because I love really dark horror, but then I like light horror as well. But yeah, she loved Maximum Overdrive. In some ways, I was disappointed to tell her, yeah, I didn't really like that. You know. But some of my favourites are like a friend of mine made this, but Hellraiser, I love Hellraiser,
beautiful.
Hellraiser 2, especially. But yeah.
Yeah, I like the second one as well. More
Yeah,
than
it's
the first.
it's like when you see the way Cenobites are made, it's really, really sinister, really sinister.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But when you watch something like that and your kind of wife or your partner walks in or whatever, and she doesn't know what you're into, it kind of freak them out.
Yeah, I get that often. My wife will never watch a horror film with me anymore since I introduced. What was the film? The last film she watched with me was Clown.
Clown. I don't think I've seen that.
Really?
No, I don't think so.
It's from the director who did the new previous Marvel Spider-Man trilogy. He did a horror film before all that.
Sam Raimi.
No. Watt.
Oh yes, the Amazing Spider-Man director.
Correct.
Yes, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, he did a horror film called Clown, which ever since then my wife will watch horror movies with me.
Is that
I think
the film?
right after we watched that we had. Pardon me? It's a film.
Is that film about the guy that puts a costume on it, basically takes over?
Yeah, and turns him into like a monster.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's really.
And he eats children. He has to eat like a certain number of children, and that's where my wife lost it. We had to watch like five. We had to watch 5 episodes of Friends just to make up for all that horror that she had consumed.
Yeah. The funniest thing, I went to a friend's house a week tomorrow, so last week, and I was talking to his wife because I do a lot of tech support stuff as well as a part of a separate job, and we love talking horror. We exchange kind of messages about recommendations, that kind of thing. It's like we love kind of talking about Stephen King TV adaptations, and she said the same thing. She has to watch episodes of Friends straight after because then it kind of balances her out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what that is. I was fine.
I think there's certain things that hit me, like in horror with like, have you seen Salem's Lot?
Yes.
So in Salem's Lot, that child that gets captured, the first one that gets attacked, I think it's in the woods, by the vampire, that's floating towards his friend's window.
Right.
And that to me is just something really just evil and, you know, horrific. And each time I walked past the doorway when I went to bed after watching that, all I could see is this child floating towards me, and it was just absolutely horrific. But certain things stay with me in horror, definitely.
Yeah, it stays with you. I mean, you grow into it, you grow up and realize, you know, it's not real. I think it helped knowing that the behind the scenes, and now that we're filmmakers, we know, you know, what has to be done to make these effects, you know, happen is not, you know, it's all fake. It's all prosthetics and gears and you know, air pockets and, you know, devices.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How long did it take you to from kind of storyboarding and producing your film? How long did it kind of take to produce the entire film?
The Entropic film?
Yeah.
Probably 2 months. 2 months and a week, I think.
Did your wife see any of the final sequence at all?
No. she would walk in sometimes, and she would just like, I don't want to know, and then she'll just close the door.
Oh, I love that.
Especially all of the laboratory shots. She walked in, goes, yeah, I don't want to know.
Oh my god.
Which is great. Storyboarding probably took me a couple days to storyboard it out, because it was just, I was just laughing the entire time I'm drawing this. This is nuts. I think, though, during the hallucination portion of it, I don't think I storyboarded that out. I just put, because I just started making whatever I came up with, whatever I had around, like, oh, that might be good background, and just do this and this, and just do a bunch of weird stuff. It's like whatever I was just thinking.
Yeah. It must be so much fun to design the sound of something like this.
The Foley, yeah. It's well,
I don't want to ask how you did it.
Well, because it goes back to videos of the making of, and so I was watching them do the making of Simpsons. It was like their first horror episode, and they were going behind the scenes of the Foley artist doing all of the sound effects for, Lisa, or no, I think it was like Lisa rips out some guy's heart, some kid's heart, and she's like tossing it in the air, and so like this, they use celery and like smacking meat in their hands, and so it's just, that looks like so much fun. And so when you're trying to come up with what kind of cool thing can I play with to make the sound for something like that bird thing, and so it was like getting my hands all greasy and kind of sliding. The audience can't see my hands right now, but trying to create the sound with the motion, and trying different types of oil and grease or meat, or some gelatin, or just soap, and seeing what gives that real, I won't spoil it, but some of the sounds and that big part of the film.
Does that kind of in your mind, then, do you start kind of racking up, or even on your notes, how to make those sounds so you can kind of reference them or use them again in the past? You kind of keep a record of how you got to that point? Yep.
So as I go, as it comes to me, or as I'm working on it, I'm like, oh, that would be a good idea. I post-it notes. I put post-it notes all around my computer, on the walls, anywhere there was, because there's points where it's just too much space in them. So then I collect it all, and I'll write it down on a notepad, and then begin again, and there'll be more post-it notes as I'm going along during my production. So yeah.
So good. That's why I can't wait for people. I can't wait to kind of when we figure out the showcase and how it's going to work, how people are going to see this. There's a very short list of. This is totally up to suit you. You don't have to say yes to this. I've got. Did you see any of the films from last year's Hellbound festival tour?
I did. Yeah.
So we've got Ian Rayburn, who talked on the live show, Cindy Stenberg, who won with Dreamcatcher, the filmmaker from Flash, and Angel Hernandez, who won the main film award 2 years ago. I'm putting a very short showcase with the filmmakers at. And this is one of the reasons I asked them a very specific question in the podcast. The best of the Hellbound Festival. And I wanted to ask you if you'd like to have your film showcase shown on a big screen in the Canadian con thing that I'm part of.
Oh yeah.
So that's at the Sudbury Indie Cinema, but they've asked me
from
to...
the previous.
Yeah, the previous episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to that the other day.
But yeah, it's. So Douglas is a filmmaker as well, and I spoke to him saying they asked me if there's any films they'd like to show, and I wanted to kind of show a breadth of films across the globe, where from Argentina, Spain, Canada, US, like for yourself and Ryan and a couple of other people. But yeah, I wanted to. because of your hard work, because of your hard work, and the laugh. Because I just burst into laughter. Like I sent you that message randomly, didn't I? I just burst into laughter.
I hit submit, and it must have been not very long before I ding ding.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's like I just watched it.
Yeah, I was just like, oh my god,
stop laughing.
Yeah, but and then I watched it again and again, like I do with all the films, and it was the technical achievements as well. Like we talked about the liquids. It's a very specific thing, but I think you kind of really nailed it. But yeah, I'm really chuffed that you said yes to that, because it'll go in with a really good Ian Rayburn film, Cindy's film, Ryan's film. There's going to be artwork for this as well, which will include your film and your name. So that'll be on a big screen with a few hundred people watching. Cool. And I do an introduction and tell everyone who the filmmakers are. But yeah, that'll be awesome, and they'll be really happy. I can't wait for Miranda that was in the episode last week. I can't wait for her to see it. And I sent her a message separately saying, "Is there an age limit? I know this is a horror festival thing you're doing, and they're generating money for this charities and stuff. Is there any kind of limit on gore or violence or anything like that?" And she said no. I said, "Okay, then I'm going to speak to Bradford." Because I really wanted to kind of show that off, and things like the liquid that, this isn't a spoiler, but people will see this liquid around the brain where the brain drops out.
Oh yeah, where he's like, yeah.
I think because people will connect to it, the kind of visceral thing, that the liquids again. But I think people will connect to it really, really well. But yeah, I'll send you the artwork and how it's going to get showcased, because I think that's in just under 2 weeks. But yeah, I'll let you know, and I've asked for them to send me a few screenshots of the cinema filled out and get some feedback from people as well. So that'll be interesting.
Reaction shots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I just love the chuckles that I get when people get to that part of the film. It's like, okay, this is great, weird. Then, oh my god, what did I just watch? And then you chuckle when you realize what you just watched. Like, oh my god.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you finish, say, any of your films, what's your kind of test audience, or do you just kind of put it online? How do you get people to see it? Is there people you show first, or?
I show a few people first, so friends, colleagues, and then I start doing the festivals locally here in the state of Arizona, and then I start to fan out to other places for submission. I try to get them in some of the major ones, but I always, sometimes my content gets rejected quite quickly.
Right.
We're not accepting it.
I'd be. This is not me asking you to do something, but I would love to see some sort of, because the close-ups you do, especially with cuts and orifices and all sorts of all sorts of things like that. I'd love to see something that's just like an alien birth, just the birth itself. Like in a series of close-ups. I think because of what you've achieved now, I think, yeah, I can see some. I can just picture something like that where it's all just close-ups. But yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated with close-ups. I like being like right in the moment, like where you're too close, like you're like you've crossed,
yeah,
the personal space bubble, and you're like right in the middle of things, to the point where it's like, any closer and you're like you're part of this object, or you're in this cut,
absolutely.
So yeah, which that's something I'm working on right now. If you can't see over me, I have a stop motion set behind me.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Are they marquettes? What are the ones on the top?
They're miniature versions of werewolves for my film.
That's awesome.
They're all made by an effects company called Midnight Studio Effects, which is here in Arizona. I don't know So Charlie Steed, are you familiar with Charlie
Yeah,
Steed?
yeah.
So Midnight Studio Effects made always makes all his werewolves. So he made my little guys. Yeah,
Oh, that's
he's a
awesome,
pretty
man.
talented
So that's
guy.
got like a
Yeah.
full. Is that got like a full articulated arms, that kind of thing?
Yep, nice wire armatures inside, very posable. It's for my neck.
That's awesome, man.
My next short. So I think I've graduated from clay. I'm moving into maquettes now.
Oh wow, okay. Do you kind of see different kinds of difficulty with that, or is it easier, or besides that?
Well, with these it's a little harder because of hair, animating hair.
Yeah.
I've watched like King Kong. Some of the stuff that Ray did with like the saber-toothed cats and stuff. It looked, the hair is so hard to keep perfect with every shot.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there trying to rebrush and make sure at least it's moving in the same flow as the frame before it. So, that takes a little bit longer to animate, but yeah.
Oh wow, I'm looking forward to that. I'll speak to you in a year then about that.
Yep. Or I'll just, when you say we're open for submissions, I'll just submit it to you and wait for your reaction again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I look forward to that one for sure. I'm going to love you and leave you there, Brad. This has been an absolute pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you.
And I'm really happy that you'll be part of the Sick showcase in Northern Canada. But I'll send you those details about what that's all about, and because I want those those kids that are playing the Mario Kart tournament during the day that are watching the horror stuff. I want to know what their reactions are going to be. That's why I've kind of you're in a small group of Hellbound filmmakers that are going to be part of that.
Oh, fantastic!
But yeah,
I can't wait to see the reactions.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to see the other films this year as well from the festival. I'm
looking forward to it.
Cindy's got an animation and another film, but hers is a 2D. And yeah, there's some. There's a really twisted one called Albano. I'm gonna. I'll read the description. This is the film freeway. It came in a couple of days ago. A spooky bathroom terrorizes hot babes. So yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll send you a private link to that one because that's quite hilarious as well.
Yeah, that just.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that just sounds like it could be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I watched it when it came in, and it's ridiculous, but it's really good fun. So yeah, thanks again, Bradford. Is it Brad or Bradford? What's the best?
Brad. My mom calls me Bradford.
Okay, well, yeah, more formal, yeah.
No worries. No worries. Either way,
it's been an absolute pleasure, and yeah, I hope I'll try and kind of involve you more, and I'll let you know about the other thing in Northern Canada as soon as possible.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem.
It's a pleasure.
Have a good day, and yeah, can't wait to see it. What have you got a working title of your next film?
Rind.
Okay, brilliant. Looking forward to it. Right, see you soon, my friend.
Okay.